Welcome, everybody, from all of us at the Giving Spirit, and thank you for being here today with us. We're going to take this time, just an hour together, to talk about what it means to support unhoused folks and their companion animals, and provide you with an example of a program that's been really dear to our hearts here at the Giving Spirit. My name is Rebecca Canara. I'm the Senior Manager of Educational Programming at the Giving Spirit. And I'm here with Tim Ingram, who's the Director of Finance and Operations and sort of knows everything and has been around from the start. And Dick Koopmans, who's the Staff and Project Coordinator and Outreach Committee Chair, who's been on both the volunteer and the staff side of things here at the Giving Spirit. And we're all going to take some time to share with you about what we do, introduce you a bit about the Giving Spirit in general, because that will give you a sense of how we see it all as one thing together that we do in support of unhoused folks. And we'll describe our work, and then we'll use the companion animal program that we do as a very concrete example that will help you to understand how you could replicate that, or if there's people in the audience right now who do their own programs already, we would love to hear your feedback and thoughts. And then we'll open it up for a Q&A. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tim, who can tell us a little bit about the Giving Spirit.
Thank you, Rebecca, and welcome everybody. It's great to see such a large crowd out there for the webcast. Let me just give you, for context, a little quick background about the Giving Spirit. As you see there on the screen, we were founded in 1999. The basic reason that we came into existence, that our founder, Tom Bagamati, implemented from the beginning, was to provide essential items for unhoused folks on the street. And most important, or just as important, is also to provide a connection to folks on the street. We just didn't want to do a handout. But when we give out our kits to talk with the homeless, to hear their stories, to make connections, to treat them as human beings, and, if possible, we try to help them. That's not our core mission to actually provide services in the regard to getting them off the street and things like that. But it's very important, as if we can help them in that area, we will do it. So moving on from that, in the first year, just to give you an idea about our growth and what we've done, Tom started with 3 volunteers and put together 40 shopping bags of stuff and items that were needed on the street and gave them out. I think they discovered then that the huge need for it. They discovered the human face of homelessness. And from that humble beginning over 22 years ago, we've been able to build 88,000 kits. The next slide, we'll talk about those different kits, but we've also been able to engage 21,000 volunteers, and we've raised nearly $6 million in donations. So we've grown quite a bit since that time. I don't put this out here to pat us on the back or anything like that. It's really to say to you these kind of things, and say to the world, in a sense, that these things are doable. You can do this. And we've shown that you can do it. It's not rocket science. And part of this Bring It Around to the Companion Animal Kit is we'd like to share as much as we know about this, so that possibly others out there can do this and extend the help out there. And of course, it's worthwhile. That's the key. Let me go through a quick, as I talked about on this next slide, that's through survival aid. These are essential items. Folks need this stuff out on the street very quickly. Unfortunately, here in Los Angeles, people unfortunately are dying 5 on average a day. So people need the essential items. There are not enough houses, there are not enough places for them to live. So they need the essential stuff. Again, the next part of the slide is survival assistance. Same message. These are life-sustaining items. They're very basic from our point of view, but they're gold on the street. You don't realize how much folks appreciate this stuff. The next part of our founding principles are education. This has become more and more important over the years. It's educating our communities in the world about the human face of homelessness. Cannot overemphasize this so much. People need to understand and dispel the myths, too many bad myths that are out there about homeless. They're human beings. They're worthy of dignity. They're worthy of help. The next part of our founding principle is outreach. You have to get the stuff out there. You have to get it to them. Dick is going to talk a little bit more about the details of the outreach, but in reference to the companion animal kits, what we found since 2017, just tell you that that's when our companion animal kits program began. But since then, we have found that there's a huge response out there from both our volunteers who want to give out the companion animal kits, but also there are lots of businesses and pet stores, if you will, that are also interested in helping homeless that own or care for companion animals. This photo here, we wanted to put this in here to show you what our curated events look like. And a curated event is defined as it's both a educational event and an opportunity for volunteers to come in and actually make the kits and build the kits. We find that this is a great combination because it's one thing to just build stuff and put things together and send it off and maybe perhaps give it out yourselves. But the other part of it is the educational thing. Why are we doing this? Why is this important? Look at the stuff that we're building. These are the key ingredients. This is why housing is needed. This is why community action is needed. It also just gives you an idea on a practical level about what it looks like. I have to say that this photo is a larger event that we've had. It was actually at NPC Universal a while back. And so we have a few more volunteers than say we might normally do for an average one. But for a companion animal kit, you can probably take a quarter of this and look at it and get an idea about what an assembly would look like. But truthfully, they can come in all kinds of versions. But just wanted to give you an idea that you see the boxes with the stuff in it. Some of the ideas about just how you do the curated event on a very practical level.
Thanks, Tim. Hello, everyone. I'm Dick Koopmans. There are three parts to our curated events. There's the assembly, learning experience, and outreach. The assembly requires a facility where an assembly line can be set up to build a specific kit, like a survival kit or a companion animal kit. Our learning experience gathers our events participants where we discuss the issue and specific demographic we're targeting with a panel of experts on the subject or people with lived experience. I guess I should say, and people with lived experience. Then we have the outreach part of the event. Depending on the setup, we gather willing participants for a partner agency visit or direct street outreach with some training. During COVID, we coordinated with more partner agencies, shelters, and clinics to distribute the assembled kits. From my experience, direct street outreach is the most meaningful and impactful to both you, the recipient, and in the case of the companion animal program, their pet. The Giving Spirit has various programs that focus on a specific population of unhoused people. We have the New Mothers program as part of our Women and Young Girls initiative, the LAUSD Homeless Student Program, the Companion Animal Program, and our overall population events, which are the summer and winter outreach. You can see our companion animal kit here with essential items that any pet owner would want, like leashes, doggy treats. We have water and food bowls. Let's look at how that program works.
Thanks, Dick. And as I said, in 2017, we started a program for companion animal kits in addition to our general population kits. When we started, we would build our general population kits, usually a duffel bag or a backpack that's got anywhere from 50 to 65 items in it. And we would bring the companion animal kits along with us and hand them out. Now, I have to backtrack and say to you, how did this all come about? It wasn't anyone's idea within the Giving Spirit at the time. In fact, a young teenager, I think she was 14 years old at the time, who was a volunteer and had gone out and given out duffel bag kits to homeless with their parents. And she came to Tom and said, Tom, what about the companion animals? As she put it, what about the dogs? And this started the whole process forward. Of course, she's a dog lover, like probably everyone on this webcast. And so one thing led to another, and we said, well, why don't we try it out? Because we should find out what the relationship is and all this. We did some research. We talked to people. We interviewed people about their companion animals on the street. We realized there's such a strong bond. And we also realized that this really helps a lot of homeless, or I should say unhoused folks, survive on the streets. And that's how our program began. And we started out small, which quite frankly, I recommend if people want to undertake a program like ours. We started out small and it has grown. We started out, first time we did it, we built about 96 kits and gave them out. And demand was pretty overwhelming. We were surprised, especially since a lot of the kits went out randomly. We just ran into folks with unhoused folks with companion animals. But last 2 years, we've done 1,200 of these. And it just tells you how much demand is there. We could build more, we assemble more, and I think they could all be distributed and given out. So it's become a very strong program with ours, but from our perspective, it's about helping both the unhoused person and the companion animal. And here's one great story. We ran into John. He suffers from PTSD, like so many that are out on the streets. And, his dog Rex basically keeps him alive, and his quote directly was, "He keeps me alive before Rex and I was lost and tortured by my trauma." So you can't overemphasize how this can help. By helping the companion animal, you're helping his owner and caretaker and vice versa. Also, the issues here are changing the mindset, speaking of education, changing the mindset of the shelters and agencies that are out there, because lots of them will not allow unhoused folks in to get services without some kind of leash, without some kind of way to control the dog or pet as it may be. And so one of the most important things is get the leash out there. But the other thing we have to do is we have to convince people to allow them, because many agencies will not allow you even if you do have a leash. So it's changing the mindset of the services and to make them recognize how important these animals are to helping their caretaker survive. And I think you can read this at the bottom there about the last quote. I don't think you understand what this means. This dog is my life, my family, my life. He has allowed me to gain my sanity. He keeps me safe at night, and the bad dreams go away. I don't know if you can say any more about motivation to help unhoused folks that have companion animals. You're helping both, and that's why we do it.
Thank you so much, Tim. And just to emphasize, I think what's really special about John's story, and this keeps happening for us when we're giving out the kits, whether they're for companion animals or for unhoused individuals in general who are visibly unsheltered, or for women, new mothers. What we find is these stories where you don't realize how you make a difference. Sometimes it's the gesture of just saying hello and making that contact that we really work with our volunteers to understand that matters, to not isolate, right? Not walk by the person in the streets, but to actually make that human contact, say hello, how are you? I have this if you would like. And so John, just to realize we had the pack, it just happened to have a leash, and now he could get into that shelter that he couldn't get into, was just a profound moment for our team, because it's not, we didn't even see that before probably. And so all that to say that when we dig into thinking about a specific demographic, so focusing on unhoused folks with their animals, with their companion animals, we knew that it was important to volunteer, to gather volunteers to help us, but also to dig into the data about that special bond. And so I wanted to give you some examples from an online module that we're building right now as part of a larger project we're doing to build educational curriculum on homelessness. And so just to understand, right, that we know that there are, about 85 million homes with pets. But we also know that of the 3.5 million plus people experiencing homelessness right now, at least 10% have pets. And then you saw that example of John and Rex of that bond. I'm sure we can all relate. And we know that, like 5 minutes with your pet can really help to reduce stress and bring calm. And so that's everything for people who are in the streets when trauma is just trauma after trauma can happen for every night that you're on the streets. And so we know that bond, that 91% in this one survey even confirmed that, right? That that the pet is a part of the family who really helps you cope through challenging times. And we know this so much so that it can be difficult for someone to leave a pet behind in an abusive situation. And so I think this really stood out to us, just to see the statistics on domestic violence survivors and and their choices whether to leave or not, and how pets can be a factor in that. And other demographics, or more specifically, right, like elders, thinking about elder abuse or thinking about elders who have any kind of housing insecurity and whether they're making choices related to their pets. And so everyone on this call and what Maddie's Fund is doing is so important to us, because you're getting the word out. We're at the conference, to the co-sheltering conference, and we're just, moved to see just how many agencies are working to help mitigate these types of challenges. And so we researched the data and we learned for ourselves, and then we want to share that learning out. And so to take the companion animal program as the example, we want you to consider it as a full event that you're holding. There are 3 parts to that process. We're setting it up, and then we're building and educating together, and then we're distributing, as Dick and Tim have both described. And so these slides that we have here that we're going to share with you afterwards are sort of a detailed to-do list that you can use. Again, for those of you already doing this, we want your feedback on what you think we're missing, or any comments. But to take a look first, at the preparation piece, to understand that we need to start as early as possible to plan, to fundraise. It takes money to gather all of the items. I think you saw in a prior slide that sometimes there's up to 75 items in one kit. And so all that sourcing that Tim is doing, Tim and other folks on the team are doing now to build the kit, that really matters. Taking the people with lived experiences, opinions at heart, and what they think is missing and what they think is needed, and to build those kits, of course, centering their voices first. And then to think through the details of how we're marketing, if it's COVID, for example, for us, and who we're distributing to, getting those partner agencies and doing that hard work that Dick does a lot of to really build relationships with agencies throughout Los Angeles region, so that we can distribute the kits to those who are most in need. And also thinking about the documentation you need, the details in that, and then planning for learning experiences. Because as we said, we put this together, we consider it all in one, that we're marrying the education with service. And then, so on the day of, or the days of, the weekend of, however you organize it, we think it's really helpful to have a run of show that you follow, and that you identify volunteers that you can trust to take the lead and direct the work of organizing other volunteers and doing the build process, so that you can have that top level view and organization on the days when everyone's going to be coming to you with questions. Our companion animal event usually takes place over 2 days, with a setup, build, and a takedown built into the process. And then and so for the companion animal program, I want to give you just an example of what we did as a learning experience. So because we really believe it takes time to process and learn together about the population we're serving, we have different themes. And so obviously this theme was really about the human-animal bond, and just to hear people's stories who have lived experience and what that meant to them, and how having a pet factored into either barriers or opportunities for them. And so we bring in local service providers as well to share their experience and their expertise and give us that broader context alongside hearing the stories from the people with lived experience. So in this example here, it was the height of the pandemic, so we did a online Zoom instead of an in-person learning experience. So we invited people to join us for a lunchtime dialogue on the Friday before the weekend of the event. And what we did is invited people who were from the partner agencies who were going to be receiving the kits to join. We invited all of our community, our volunteers and supporters, anyone else interested. And we screened the film 6 minutes. So definitely we shared it at the co-sheltering conference as well. So you may have already seen it, but we shared that and then had the people who were in the video present to really have a special Q&A together and just talk about the issues coming up. We probably could have gone for 2 hours. We probably could have gone for 3, which is what often happens because the more we get into these issues, there's so much nuance. There's such important details to learn from each other. But we had Scott and Carrie from the video. We had Anne English from My Dog Is My Home and Ileana Bellins from Pals and Pets here in Los Angeles. So just on the slide is just for you to get an example of sort of the breakdown, right, of who we had. And then so in the end, after we do those learning experiences, after we've built the kits, there's just as much time needed to close and do the outreach. Again, so it's the wrap up, it's the logistics, it's all about, making sure that you leave whatever venue you were renting or whatever you're using the way that you got it. But also building those relationships and doing the distribution, whether it's, again, with direct outreach or whether it's with agencies you partnered with. And then follow up. So, seeking out feedback on how did it go, what worked, what didn't work, what do we want to change next time, whether that's an internal team practice or something that you're doing with the outer community and then processing within the team as well. So that is sort of the key is this slide for you with all the details. And what we want to just say is reach out anytime. This is my contact information. It will also have that available for you in this PDF that we'll share afterwards. And then we also have a ton of links for you. And just to summarize really quickly what they are, we do in every kit, we have cards. So Tim, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second since my voice is a little weak. Can you just describe a bit what these cards are and why we do it?
Yes, let me give you a quick background for the cards. Many years ago, we're talking probably in 2000s, I would say around 2006, 2007, a Girl Scout troop came to us and said, we want to do something for the kits that you're going to build. These kits were for the general population. And I think there were something like 20 or 25. And, we scratched our heads and somebody threw out this idea of let's do friendship cards. We didn't call them that, but we were going to put cards and put a card in the kits. So the Girl Scout troop did it, and they made 10 each, and we had 200 of them. And it was just wonderful what the kids were able to do, and they just touched your heart, but also the thoughtfulness. And again, it was about education. They're thinking about what they're doing and why they're doing it, and they're young. Excuse me. And so what we discovered is I personally gave out some of these kits, and I was stunned at, maybe stunned's too strong, but I don't think so. What they would pull out, and in several cases, they would look at the card first. And this was recounted by many of us many times. And they would stare at the card, and it would mean something to them. And I had other friends, I didn't necessarily see this, but I had other friends said people would tear up. We also would get letters from folks who had treated kids, and they would address the person. Sometimes the kids would sign their first name, and we actually got one to Sophie, but we've gotten others. And I still remember this one, and said, Sophie, thank you so much for the card. I'm doing well, and went on and talked about it. And but it's just an example of how the cards, we realized, touched people. It made a difference. It's, again, a way of human connection and humanizing on both sides. And so that's where the friendship card program began, and they're all handmade. No, we won't allow any sort of production card to come into it. We appreciate people donating those to us, but we said, no, we got to make these. And they're overwhelmingly made by kids and teenagers, though there are many adults that get involved as well. But it's a great family project, but it's a way for kids to begin to understand something about the unhoused and what their needs are and the world that we live in. And that link that's there for making cards will show you how to do it. And it's pretty simple, as you might imagine, but the imagination that folks have put into these cards is endless, and we've received lots of beautiful cards that are very well done. And because of that, they're respectful for the people who receive them. So friendship cards are a big part of our kits and big part of our program.
And if I can add, Tim, it's not only something that they gravitate towards, but it's, in terms of direct street outreach, it can be your icebreaker to have a conversation with somebody. And they, trying to build a level of trust and, giving somebody hope with something tangible that they can hold on to after they've gone through that jar of peanut butter, or some of the things have kind of worn out. They still hold on to that card for some times. And we have anecdotes. One in particular is the brother of Rodney King. He was homeless like close to 25 years, and he credits the Giving Spirit and that card for making a transformative click in his mind to seek help, realizing that there's multiple factors, but it's like there's a tipping point at some point. And on our YouTube channel, which I think there's a link there, you can find an excerpt with him, and I think we're going to be releasing a full edit of his experience. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I can just add real quickly, the companion animal kits are not accepted. We do friendship cards, and because we all love dogs and so many people love their companion animals and things, we get very clever cards and beautiful cards for the companion animal kit. So it's not like it's just for the human population, so to speak. It's a great idea for the companion animal and much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think I was blown away when I heard Wong King's story the first time, that card made a difference for him, and he was separately just coming to speak at an event for us and had the card. I think it blew Tom, our founder's mind. Yeah, and I see Allison's putting in the chat. Any questions you have, definitely put them in the Q&A box. We're about to do that. I'll just finish with this slide really quickly, and then we'll answer any questions that you have, or welcome any comments as well. So yes, there are a lot of links. One thing I wanted to emphasize is our YouTube channel. We do a lot of videos. There are other folks doing that, like Invisible People, but the videos and people sharing their stories, that's really what is very impactful for shifting minds and hearts. And that's a lot of our work, is to really get as many people on board and being part of solutions out there when it comes to homelessness. And so we definitely want to emphasize, when you're doing all of this, of course, to do a lot of photos and video as best you can. That link, the companion animals link, is I think the one that we put in earlier, which is our 6-minute video. And then there's an older video as well. And then again, also examples of online and in-person learning experiences that we've done that are just specific to themes in the different demographics that we serve when we're talking about homelessness and the diversity of people who experience it. So I think one of them is probably a link to youth experiencing homelessness. We're doing up next in July for our next event, we'll be focused on mental health and disability and how it interacts with homelessness. And then there are a lot of how-to videos, and that's in supporting and training people to do the direct outreach. And I know that for me, I used to work in the field. I used to work in different shelters, but I wasn't doing direct outreach to people who are visibly unsheltered in the streets. They had to come to me in different programs I was in, and watching one of these videos and attending this one training at a Giving Spirit event when I was just a volunteer. I don't even know. I can't tell you what the shift was, but it just made it for me to hear some very practical, this is what you do. This is how you're respectful. This is what you don't do. And that was enough for me to start just doing the work that I do now, where I'm much more connected with mutual aid groups and working with people directly. So I think with that, I'm going to say thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for giving us the time to share about our program. It's certainly a labor of love. And I am going to stop sharing and open it up to Q&A. And Allison, if you want to help me find the questions here, let's see, I'm going to pull up.
We have a question here from Lynn Moser. How much funding do you need on average to put on a curated event?
Tim, do you want to take that one?
Yes. Let me first start out with, if you do a curated event, let's just assume that you do it on this is a first time basis. If you have more experience, then you'll be able to, expand upon what I'm saying, I think, and use what I had to say. Generally, the kits themselves, from our perspective, they end up costing about $20 or $25 each. It all depends on what you're able to get. Of course, during the pandemic, there are all kinds of issues about getting stuff and the prices, and now we have inflation, so those numbers may change. But that's the assumption we work on. And then we add in, of course, a little bit for overhead and for the cost of the event itself. And of course, there are lots of variables there. If you have to lease a place, try, of course, to avoid those kind of costs. You're trying to minimize your costs and things like that. But a good way to set up a budget and put it together is work towards something around $50 a kit. So if you and work upward or downward from that, our average is usually around $50 when it's all said and done. Again, there are lots of variables there. We usually are able not to have to pay for a place. We get lots of volunteers. We don't usually have to hire too many professionals to help us out. That's not always the case. Sometimes during the pandemic, we had to do that because for obvious reasons, we had to build things to protect everyone. We couldn't have as many volunteers. So you have to take into account all those variables. But that's where I would start. It's $50 a kit. And on a practical level, if you're just starting out, I think you can even do as few as 25 kits. You can do as many as 100. But that first event is your learning event. Your first event is where you will learn the most about how to do the event. And so I would advise you to start small. It's relatively small, but you also don't know what your demand is. You got a lot of things to learn there, but the growth is fast. You do one event, you've learned a heck of a lot, and the next time around, you're much more prepared for it. And the last thing I would suggest is ritual, and I say, set times for it when you plan to do it each year, or every other month, perhaps, if you're doing small ones, that sort of thing, because that helps you keep things in line as a very practical level about making sure, everybody needs deadlines. It's the bottom line. So I hope that answers your question. There are a lot of variables there, but I like to start at $50 and you can move down or you can move up. But usually that's within folks' budgets.
Thank you so much, Tim. Good. Yeah, and I see we have another question here. And I hope you see in the chat, they're thanking you and saying it's great advice. I thank you, Sarah. I see your question about, do we have dog kits and do we see any people with cats? And I've asked that same question when I first started. So I think I can answer it. And Tim and Dick, feel free to tell me if I'm missing something. I think that the answer is at the moment we've focused on dogs. Yes, I definitely have seen people with cats. There are fewer of them. And I've seen a lot more dogs. And so I think that the decision for the Giving Spirit was to stay focused on dogs for now when you're doing these bulk gathering of supplies, but it could easily be augmented for cats. And I don't know if it's the satisfying answer, but that's the current question. That's sort of my understanding. Is there anything, Tim, you would add? Or
yes, that's our biggest challenge is we just don't see that many unhoused folks with cats. We do on occasion, but in terms of efficiency and what we can expect, sadly, we don't see enough. And just to go back very quickly at the beginning of this program, we would take the kits out and then put them in our trucks and vans and go to certain areas of the city. It's random when we would encounter unhoused folks with companion animal kits. So our chances of helping someone with a companion animal is so much greater with a kit with dog supplies than with cats. So we're still working on that. We haven't tried to we're aware of that. We just haven't quite figured out a way to address that need, partly because we don't know how to reach it. But hopefully we can figure that out.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. And I see also actually in the chat, we have a question about how do you get the words out to the unhoused folks to take advantage of the companion pet kits? Oh, it's interesting. So I've only witnessed, Dick and Tim, I've only witnessed the way that you partner with agencies. So maybe Dick, if you want to talk about that piece, and then if there's more, Tim, about what outreach has looked like in the past with giving the kits directly. I know John and Rex is one example.
Yeah, sure. During COVID, we definitely partnered with LASA, which is the LA Homeless Services Authority. They had a lot of the direct street outreach teams, just going to specific encampments, specific sites, and they knew how many people within those encampments had pets, and they gave us estimated numbers. But we also had, different agencies that work directly with pets, and they knew, depending on what the agency was, that they knew also how many. But in terms of like a specific person, the only way that we would do that was with direct street outreach. And when I first started volunteering about 5 years ago, we'd have these survival kits, and we'd put like 4 or 5 of these big duffel bags in our trunk, and we'd take a couple companion animal kits along with us. And inevitably, when you're walking around or driving around trying to find somebody that's in need, you come upon somebody that has a pet, and you can go back to the car and grab that companion animal kit, and talk about an icebreaker. That not only is that card an icebreaker, but the kit itself is just like a it just opens a floodgate, because they want to talk about their animal. They love their animal. I would say too, it's funny, through our social media, through our website, I've actually been at the Westchester facility, where we've where we built some of our kits. We actually had somebody that knew we were building backpacks, not necessarily the companion animal kits, but they knew we were building them, and they asked for one. So the power of information is there, but it's really direct street outreach and partnering with the specific agencies. Hope that helps.
Yeah, and actually, I see a lot in the chat related to this, so I'm going to just bring that forward, and and then I will get to Christine's question. But so Sarah saying the group that you work with the group that we work with, Feed Phoenix, finds where large camps are, and we bring supplies and resources to them quickly. I usually just bring dog supplies, but I've been seeing a lot of requests for cats lately. Yeah, and I think, as Dick is talking about that partnership then with people who are out there every week, there are a lot of mutual aid groups that are doing that. So I'm connected to LA Neighbors for Neighbors, and I was on an outreach with them where that was what we were doing. We were bringing food and supplies with just a wagon going through the encampment. And then there was someone with the 2 dogs, and I was able to just give them one of the companion animal kits that we had, because the Giving Spirit had given it to LA Neighbors for Neighbors. So, but yeah, the cat thing, I think it's definitely key to find a way to also support. And then, okay, so, and then Sarah, you also work with a lot with Greater Good, and they have their good packs and pet pouches that we've been able to get. They went really quickly. Yeah. And so now I'll go to Christine's, because I think it looks like Dylan is connected to Christine's. So Christine's question is, we predominantly depend on community donations to build our companion animal kits. How can we best expand on that so that the kits are more uniform or equitable? Any advice? And then to just expand on Christine's question, Dylan asks, I was also going to say, having a stable supply of pet food has been difficult for us to maintain with our pet pantry program. I'm assuming you rely on donations from distributors for your food. If so, How did you go about making those partnerships, and what's your storage capacity for that food? Many programs seem to require rather large shipments, requiring large storage space which is difficult for small orgs. Tim, do you think, is that one a good one for you to take on?
Yes, be happy to take that on. Fortunately, we've been able to raise funds for this program, and that helps us in terms of procurement, especially procurement for food. One of the first things we learned in regard to this, and this is something of a tip for events, but also just if you're giving out food without a kit or in some other form, what we found out is that our unhoused neighbors with companion animals do not like to get food that has been split up, that comes in a Ziploc bag. They rather have a separate package that is sealed, that comes from directly from the store, retail, or something like that, because many of them don't trust it, and some of them, just because of the mental state they're in and things like that, might think it's poisoned. They're not trustful of it, and of course, trauma and distrustfulness is a major feature of homelessness, and so you have to be aware of that. So I don't recommend that because the food will probably go to waste. That's probably not always the case, but just keep that in mind. The way that we go about procuring it is we actually buy the food because we have a wholesaler here where you get the food for under $1. So we of course are here in Los Angeles. There's a company called Bargain Wholesale that we've done a lot of business with over the years. And they're a wholesale version of 99-cent store, which if you're not from Los Angeles is a dollar store. It's in the same market with Dollar Days and Dollar Tree and those kind of stores. And so we're able to get these packages that cost us less than $1 and put them in the kit. In terms of having kind of partnerships and donations with distributors of food, they can be challenging. You have to know someone. It's pretty much my way of looking. And I don't like to discourage people from trying. You should, and talk to as many people as you can. But that decision maker who can donate those for us, they donate 1,200 packages of food. That person tends to be a little bit higher up the chain, a little harder to get to. And so you've got to have a lot of patience and work hard at it. The more relationships you make, the better chance you have. We happen to have one relationship with one food supplier, but it's because our chairman, Tom Balgamani, worked for that company earlier in his career, I should say. And so that's how we got it. But that's a perfect example of you've really got to work relationships to try to get it. But local pet food stores, and Dick has found this out, the managers there and folks, if you're doing smaller kits, they tend to have, or smaller numbers, they tend to have a lot of compassion about this, and you may be able to get some donations that way. We really can't go that way because our numbers are too large. So those are a couple things. And I would just say for sources, dollar stores for companion animal kits, are a great way to go. Dollar Days, just mentioned Bargain Wholesale. Dollar Tree, you can look into them. And also the branding companies. We use one called 4 Imprint. There's another one called Everything Branded. There are a ton of them out there. They're all in the market. But because people have so many dogs and cats as well, and they love them so much, it's a great opportunity for branding. So they ended up having large inventories of things like portable bowls, just all kinds of the stuff. Sometimes leashes, not always, and they tend to be a little more expensive. But anyway, don't want to go into too much detail, but a lot of this is just online research. You can do a little bit of work, but online, and you can find a lot of stuff. But those are places that I can recommend to you. There's also, real quick, we have a store here called Cold Imports. It's a local store. It could probably sell nationally, but they do closeouts, and we've gotten lots of stuff from them as closeouts. So look for those closeouts in your area. Even in LA, they'll ship them to you. The problem is, of course, transportation costs, but they have a lot of stuff that's inexpensive. And it'll surprise you how inexpensive it is. And most of it, in my experience, has been good quality. So I hope that answered your question. Probably maybe a little more information than you wanted, but those are the sources that we use. And in terms of donations, we just can't, in terms of in-kind donations, we can't rely on that sufficiently enough to build our kits on a regular basis. It's another reason to start out small. You start making those connections.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And yeah, so there's a lot of fundraising that's involved, whether it's with private donors, individual direct donors, sponsorships, and foundations. There's a lot there so that we can purchase the goods like Tim was describing. I wanted to, so, and the event, when we say treat it like an event, that's a way to also have, you can have large scale sponsorships that way, right? To help sponsor getting all of these supplies that you're going to then use throughout time, or other agencies are going to use throughout time. And there was a question in the chat about how often do we go out? So I wanted to say thank you for that question. I think and I'm seeing in the chat a lot of different examples. So right now during COVID, the giving spirit hasn't directly gone out as much as they've given to all the agencies who are still directly going out. And so that was like the LA Neighbors for Neighbors example for me, or they're connected to other organizations. We have like a monthly access center, or they have their organizations that are out every Sunday giving food. And so then they can carry the kits with them. And I saw an example in the chat about that. So I think there's that direct outreach that's regular with organizations with just community members or organizations. Then there's people who have supplies on hand, like I saw in the chat about just carrying sleeping bags and things in your car, blankets, also have a companion animal kit. And then curated events like what we're describing of how you can just mass produce a bunch to support all of that need, whether it's us going out or somebody else. We're right now trying to determine whether we're going to do direct outreach in July or whether we're going to keep with the model that we've been using with the rising cases right now. I saw something else in the chat that I wanted to highlight, but yeah, I think I'll leave it just to see if there's any other comments or questions that people have. How do I know if there's already an ongoing organization in my area or not? That's a great question. Mm-hmm. I think that we should use the chat a little bit because we only represent the LA area. So I think if people have suggestions, I'll say what comes to mind for me, but please go ahead and use the chat to suggest. Yeah, I find a lot of people on social media as well. Thank you, Sarah. I find that if I start following one organization, they start that points me to another one and to another one. There's also ways to just directly call both your human shelters and your animal shelters and see what they're doing and find out how they answer. Like, what are you providing? How do you already address this? If not, do you know who is or how, just start going there. I think there's some online research and then there's some phone calling you could do. You mentioned using duffel bags for the general kits. What type of bag is typically used for the companion animal kits? Oh, is that on our slide? I can show you the picture. The duffel bags are much larger, and the companion animal kits are those drawstring backpacks.
Josh and Rex are holding one.
Yeah, I'm going to just share my screen really quickly. Give me 1 second.
It's a tote bag that has a drawstring on it.
So see, he's holding it in his right hand.
And that, if I can just interrupt real quick, that comes from 4Imprint. There are lots of promotional stores, promotional online retailers. And when I say promotional, in other words, they want to they live and exist and to brand your product on things like that tote bag that's there. Of course, you don't have to buy the brand, and they'll sell it to you without the brand, believe me, and you don't have to pay for it. But they have lots of those kind of totes, and the best thing is they have different prices and different levels, so you can figure out what it is that will work best for you. And the reason we like that one is it's very sturdy, it holds everything well. It can be useful after all the items are useful in the future in any way. And then also it has that reflective stripe on there. And of course, here in Los Angeles, we have large numbers that are outside, so it does have that purpose as well. But we found out we put about 20 to 25 items in there for pets. Obviously, you don't have to put that many in, or you possibly could put more. But when you do an event, if you actually decide to do a companion animal kit, that's the first thing you need to think about is how many items and whether what you're going to put it in will work, will hold it, will be strong enough, and also be useful to the unhoused person or family for, in the future. And so.
Yeah, thank you. I think that there's probably a wealth of knowledge on this call of what we, of all the different ways we can be doing this. And so I just want to make sure I put this in the right chat here for everybody that, after the webcast, you can also find us on Maddie's Pet Forum to continue the discussions. We can exchange ideas. We would love your feedback. Love to hear what you're thinking of doing in your area or what you're already doing. And then I'm just going to come back to this question and answer. Let's see. You want a straight list. Okay, so Sabrina, you want a straight list of what we put in everything we put in the companion animal kit.
Yes.
Okay, we can follow up, and if the link that was shared with you didn't work, we'll follow up and see what it is. I can go back to the picture for a second. I guess let me go to it. Give me 1 second. And then if you want to talk about that, Tim, I'll just share my screen one last time.
Yes, there we go. Yes, so this is basically a sample kit. It's always a little bit different for each one. I talked about the smaller bags of food there, and as long as we're talking about the food, one other thing I wanted to add is try to find food that's been produced in the United States. I've heard it from many, and this I will say this is from dog lovers who have dogs. They all prefer food that's been packaged and of course made in the United States. So I would check that. There's lots of food out there from China, India, and they're not as trustful with that. So be careful on that, especially when you're at dollar stores, because they'll sell brands from all over across the world. But you can see there you have the portable water cup and food cups. I think you can see that in there. Always in high demand. People love those. If you look to the left there, there's this cute picture of a dog there. On the left corner, that's a blanket. You can find those, a 30-30 by blanket. I found that people love those. One thing that we don't give out anymore, if you look up a little bit, there's a rawhide bone, partly because they tend to come from India and China, but also they're not supposed to be so good for the dogs, from what I've known. Actually can't see some of the stuff, but you see a dog, toys. So toys are big. It's great to get toys in there, and usually you can find some that are pretty inexpensive for them to use. And of course, there's the leashes and the collars. The challenge on the collars is that the size of the dog. So we try to put in a medium and that stretches as far as it can. And that's how we look at it. And of course, doggy bags are always helpful, always in use. And we try to put in as many doggy bags. They tend to be less expensive than some of the other items, so that's good. There's a flea comb up there, always useful. I don't see a brush on there. I think almost every kit we've had has a brush. I will say that when they open the kits, as we talked about before, they like to look at the friendship card, and the brush comes out and the toys come out. And they start brushing the dog and they play with the toys. That almost invariably happens, first thing to happen. Another thing you can always put in there is a bottle of water, because often a lot of thirst out there, but it helps them use the bowl right away. To me, it's always been appreciative. And real quick, you see there's 2 green dental chews that we actually got from Costco. And this is one item we do put in Ziploc bags. And we trust that they'll use them. We take the risk that maybe they'll say, no, I don't want this because it's not in the original package. But that's a trade-off that we made from our experience, that because we want to get it to them. But that's the only economical way that we can do that.
Yeah, thank you. And I was just pulling up the link that Allison had put in the chat for us. And I think it probably has all our other kits. And so we can update the website. Thanks for notifying us that. that it doesn't have the companion animal kits. I think what I will just say is that I hear Tim saying, we change that slightly each time. And so I think one thing I would say is it's really good to always start with centering the voices of the people in your community and what they want and need. And so your kit might not look like our kit, right? Like you're hearing Tim responding to buy in the USA, made in the USA, whatever it is, whatever example it is, there may be a reason why your kit needs to be a little bit different than ours. But I do appreciate you calling that out on our website so that we can change it. There's one more question. And Tim, do you restock the kits?
We continue to produce the kits, and of course, get stock for them. But we produce them. As I talked about before, it's always good to put them on a schedule and have it and do the production, buying, purchasing the whole event on a regular basis. So yes, we'll do 1,200 this year, and we always have some surplus items, but we continue to stock and then get ready for the next event and the next outreach and educational program to go with it.
Just thank you all for being here with us today, and look forward to seeing you in the Maddie's Pet Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.